We had a Kentucky expert come in and say yesterday that Kentucky's going to beat Auburn and that Kentucky is a better job than Auburn. What?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into a special crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Kentucky. I'm Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn. He is Lance Dawe of Locked On Kentucky. Who wins this weekend? We share our picks and predictions. The quarterback situation for both teams, I think it's a little interesting. But Lance, on your show yesterday on Locked On Kentucky, go check it out wherever you get your podcasts, Auburn people. You made the claim that Kentucky's going to go into Auburn and win, which we'll discuss the game in a second. But you made the claim because both of these coaches are on the hot seat, Hugh, Stoops. You made the claim that Kentucky is a better job, we're talking about football here, is a better job than Auburn. Please explain.
Yeah, I want to be clear here. This is not the hardwood that we're talking about. This is what's happening on the gridiron for both of these SEC programs. Look, there are a couple of different ways I think you could look at this as far as Kentucky being a better job. If you want to take the national perspective, I think you could absolutely make the case that currently Kentucky is not only a better job for any coach out there, it's also a better program than where Auburn is currently. First and foremost, since 2018, Tigers are 49-46. Kentucky is 53-39. So just in terms of wins, Kentucky's got them beat there. They both have as many winning seasons in the SEC in that stretch. Kentucky's got more 10-win seasons. In fact, 2 more since then. So they've got them beat on the field. Off the field, in terms of recruiting, what Auburn has been doing has not amounted to anything. So I think that's irrelevant in this conversation. And then when you talk about the expectations at both of these programs, if you are a Division I coach, up-and-coming guy that's about to be hired at somewhere like Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, etc., I think that you look at a place like Kentucky and say, okay, they're paying their current head coach $9 million to go 7-5, if that, every single year, and the fans are content with that, basically year in and year out. What would stop me from having one of the 10 highest annual salaries in this sport and going to a place where I don't have to get 9 or 10 wins? I don't have to compete for a national championship. I can build this thing up and make this what I want it to be while also getting paid a ton of money. It's not like Kentucky doesn't have the resources. Again, it's not like they're not winning. Unlike Auburn, they can pay as much as Auburn. They are winning more than Auburn. And I think that, well, don't know why they're not paying Hugh Freeze. And then if you look at John Sumrall specifically, I think it's beyond a shadow of a doubt that Sumrall is Kentucky's a way better fit than Auburn, and I think it's a better fit than Florida. He's a Kentucky guy. He's been here twice, once as a GA, once as a coach. He's got familiarity with the landscape. He can come back and be a hometown hero. This fan base will love him more than any other place in America. Again, I want to reiterate, the expectations are not that high. You can go 7-5, 8-4. We're going to be really excited about that year in and year out. Kentucky can pay him a ton of money to come here and be the coach. I think Kentucky's got Auburn beat.
So, wow, there's a lot to unpack there. First off, so if the production over the last few years is what determines how good a job is, are we in agreement that the Auburn basketball job is better than the Auburn Kentucky job?
No.
So what happens over the previous few years, we admit that Auburn's down. Kentucky has been historically up, and I think they benefited from a down Florida and a down Tennessee over the past few seasons. And now that Tennessee's picked up, it's become tougher on Kentucky, and then Florida's been Florida. As far as the argument of if it's easier and the expectations are lower, I 100% agree with you. The expectations are, and that was part of Stoops' frustration, right? Like that it almost felt like he was constantly having to call out the basketball program, whether, it was Pope or Calipari there. That always kind of seemed to be a thing, especially when NIL became introduced, and that always was something. I don't know if that makes it a better job or not, Lance. I think that kind of depends on who you hire and who wants to sign up for that. Like if you want the easier job, yeah, I do think Kentucky will have lower expectations, and I think the path to 8 or 9 wins will be easier, 100%. I don't know if that makes the job better, and that probably varies from opinion from candidate to candidate. I don't know what John Sumrall wants. You mentioned John Sumrall. He's a Kentucky alum, correct? Isn't that why he's always been tied to Kentucky? So how important is that for John Sumrall? We'll certainly have to see. But I'm going to push back on the money. I know they're not paying Hugh Freeze, but they didn't have to. And also, I think Auburn was a little bit hands tied from a money standpoint with some of the buyouts. But I think Auburn's able to pay more than Kentucky is, or probably willing to pay more than Kentucky is. And look, at Auburn, you're the face of the athletic department. At Kentucky, that's going to be whoever's your head basketball coach. But if your main argument is if it's easier, I will give you that. Sure. I think it is an easier job at Kentucky than it is at Auburn.
A couple of things. I don't think basketball and football are comparable here. I think that when you look at Kentucky and Auburn in basketball and you say, well, Auburn has had more success, I would say marginally, because of what they've done in the postseason over these past several years. Like, asking the question, does that make it a better job? I think it's a different beast there, because Auburn in football is not the winningest program in America, historically speaking. So I think we're talking about two completely different things there when talking about Kentucky basketball versus Auburn in the past several years.
You didn't mention historically. Like, Auburn has more historic wins than Kentucky does. You talked about the last 2 years.
Yeah, but as far as culture and what Kentucky basketball is, it's completely different as a job than Auburn. It's not like it's not comparable. So if we're making the argument that, well, Auburn might not have won over the last several years, but they're still a better program or willing to pay more money, they haven't really shown enough to like make that case over a team like over a basketball program like Kentucky, who regardless is always going to be number one.
I'm not pushing back on that. As far as the basketball job, I'm not pushing back on that at all. I was just asking that question to kind of pose that the last 5 years does not define a program. And I think you agree with me on that.
I think that for Auburn right now, it's starting to define who they are, because
it's defining where they are right now, for sure. Yeah. But in the same instance, like LSU's an attractive job. Florida's an attractive job. I think Penn State's going to be an attractive job. And even, I think, a more extreme example, a lot of people are saying Matt Rule of Nebraska could go to Penn State because he's an alum there. There's ties. Nebraska is an attractive job because of the historical impact. They haven't been great in a long time, but it's still an appealing job because of the resources, because of the tradition, because of the history. A lot of these big programs are more than just the last 5 years, thankfully for Auburn's point of view.
And it's the only thing they're kind of holding on to here right now, because, again, I think if we're comparing these two, at the very least, if we're comparing these two schools, I think that Kentucky, again, has them beat in a variety of areas. And the thing of, well, Auburn's been kind of tied because they continue to fire coaches and they didn't really have to pay Hugh Freeze. Okay, whenever they fire Hugh Freeze, what are they going to do now? Are they going to go out and are they going to pay $9 million for the next head coach? Because, again, Kentucky's willing.
Who it would be, right?
Yeah, Kentucky's willing to put that money out. If they want to go, if the competition is Sumrall, Kentucky's going to put that money out. So I think that Auburn doesn't have Kentucky beat here. And frankly, again, as far as expectations go and as far as money go, if those are the two things that are the priority here, to not have to be put in a high stress environment and to also make a ton of money, I think Kentucky is the best job in America, period. I'm not the first person to say that. Actually, there are a lot of other people that have said that before me. So
yeah. So once again, just on your point of like production recently, when it comes to the program, how far back are you willing to go? You said 5 or 6 years. What was the time frame you just said?
2018. So 7 years.
Why 2018? What's special about that year?
Because that was the first time that Kentucky had a 10-win season under Stoops.
Yeah, got it. But like, let's look at Auburn's current administration, like the current regime. Like, Auburn's won more since Hugh Freeze has been here, and this has been like the worst period of Auburn history, and they've still won more than Kentucky has, and they've beaten Kentucky head to head.
Yeah, but it's not been. It's how much have they beaten them? How much more have they beaten them? Is the question.
Let's look. So this year, Kentucky has 2 wins, right? So they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They 2 and 6. Is that right?
2 and 5. Yeah.
2 and 5. In 2024, last year, Kentucky won 4 games, including, and then they lost to Auburn head to head. And then in 23, they won more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But their wins were against Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron. They did beat a ranked Florida team, Vanderbilt, and they beat Mississippi State. And a good Louisville team. I forgot about that. So 2023 was a good one for Kentucky. But to act like even recently that there's been this massive divide between the two, I think it's a little.
That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying that the schools are comparable, and Auburn doesn't have Kentucky beat in any category, even like significantly or marginally.
What do you mean in any category?
And as far as on the field, off the field,
since 2018. Well, what about like the last? What about the last 2 years? Like we're just picking arbitrary dates here.
Well, no, I'm saying like through the whole. If you take the stretch as a whole, like if we can't just look at like 1 year.
The stretch starts.
Yeah, we can. And now you're defining over the last several years, and Kentucky still, it's like a comparable job, if not Kentucky being the better program marginally.
So let's do this, and then let's talk about the game. Let's assume both, which I don't love the conversation of like talking about future head coaches when a coach is still employed, but
right.
Let's assume both programs are looking for a head coach at the end of the season. Which head coach will be paid more, if you had to guess? Kentucky's next coach or Auburn's next coach?
Depends on who it is, I think.
Of course it depends. But if you had to guess,
I would say Kentucky because they're going to try and get Sumrall. They're going to pay him a ton of money.
Yeah, I think Sumrall's a really good coach. Whoever ends up with him, they're going to get a really good coach for sure. All right. We disagree on that. I got to feel we're going to disagree on this game on Saturday. Let's jump into that in just a moment on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Kentucky. One thing we can agree on. We can agree that FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Can you imagine wagering anywhere other than with our friends at FanDuel?
No, absolutely not. No. And this weekend, actually, I believe you can, if you're an Auburn fan and you think Kentucky's going to go out here and lay a stinker against Ashton Daniels and company, I believe the line is 10.5, right, Zach?
10.5 right now. Yep. Opened at 9.5. It's moved to 10.5, which I'm a little surprised. That seems a little high to me. I'm not going to lie to you.
It's a little high because I don't know if either team's going to score 10 in this game.
Low scoring, 10 points in a low scoring game is a ton. But hey, you can bet $5, and if your first $5 bet hits, if you're a new FanDuel customer, $300. $300 in bonus bets. Are you kidding me? So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Before we get into our official picks and predictions, the quarterback situation is interesting. I mean, obviously Jackson Arnold on the Auburn side gets benched. Ashton Daniels comes in. Doesn't light the world on fire, but does seem like a spark or like a glimmer of hope. And so we'll see, reports are coming out that he's kind of taking more reps with the ones, and it seems like he's going to be the guy, Lance, unless something crazy happens, which it could. It's Auburn. There's never a normal day around here. I saw some rumblings that there's a slight chance that Calzada plays. Is that legit?
I would say no.
Okay.
And I would say it'd be really difficult to bench the freshman who just threw 5 touchdowns, albeit in a blowout loss to Tennessee, but still against the anemic former Auburn Tiger, Zach Calzada. It would be very difficult to bench him or for what Calzada is at this point. Boli, while, and this is something I've said all season, Boli might not be a top half of the league quarterback, but he's a lot better than what Kentucky was getting with Calzada. And all I was asking for, and I said this on yesterday's show, all I was asking for was for this passing offense to have any semblance of a pulse, not even to be average, not even to be slightly below average, just to be like, okay, at least we're not bottom of the league. And now with Boli, who has shown some flashes, has shown some touch, and again is coming off of that big time performance against Tennessee. I think Kentucky's got to be pretty okay with where they're at with Boli. So as far as the passing attack goes, Calzada will never sniff the field again unless he gets an eighth year and goes somewhere else.
No, I'm sure he'll pop up in another school next year. Why not? Why not? Yeah, I think I've been impressed with Boli, the little bit that I've been able to see of him. Definitely wants to stretch the field, isn't afraid to make the throws. I actually didn't realize he was a freshman until after I looked up more stuff after watching him, which I mean that as a compliment. He plays unafraid, which I think can be good and bad. I think against his Auburn defense, that's got to be something that this defense has to be opportunistic with, because I do think they're going to have to help out the offense unless Ashton Daniels really does provide that spark, which, we'll see exactly what that looks like. But I've been impressed with Boli for sure. I think whoever scores 20 in this game wins. I really think this is going to be tough. Auburn's defense has been holding opposing offenses to like 12 points under their scoring average. I mean, they've been unbelievable. And I'm curious to see. That's one of the things I've pointed out a lot, Lance, and push back on it if you want. Like, there's not a specific matchup from the Kentucky perspective offensively that I feel like Kentucky will be confident in. I like Auburn's DBs against Kentucky's pass catchers. I like Auburn's linebackers against Kentucky running backs. I like Auburn in the trenches, their defensive line versus Kentucky's offensive line. Is that arrogant of me to say? Is that ignorant of me to say? Push back on that where you think it makes sense to, please.
There is not a single individual matchup between Auburn's defense and Kentucky's offense where I would say, yeah, Kentucky either has the edge or has the edge by a significant margin, or is like, hey, let's have a conversation about how these two units match up. Like, they're comparable. Like, the matchup is even. The reason that I think Kentucky might have some offensive success, and I want to be clear here with my wording. I'm not saying Kentucky's going to go out there for throw for 500 yards. I'm not saying that they're going to go out there and have an insane day. I think this is going to be a very rough game, but this Auburn team is currently 4th worst in the SEC in terms of preventing explosive plays. Kentucky's tight ends, for example, averaging 14 yards per reception. Kentucky goes to them a ton. They are, like you said, Boli can be a little dangerous, just chucking the ball downfield, it feels like, at various points this season. If Auburn gives up enough explosives to what may seem like, to the common SEC fan, some no-name receivers, DJ Miller, Kendrick Law, if you remember him in Alabama, again, Caddis and Rodriguez at the tight end position. If they give up enough explosives to those guys, I think it puts Kentucky in scoring position to maybe get to 20, to get a little past 20. Again, I'm not saying it's going to be a career day for Cutter Boli or anything like that. I just think that there's not an individual matchup that I like, but in terms of schematics and in terms of how aggressive Kentucky is, if they hit enough, I think that's where you start to have the conversation of, okay, it's maybe a little bit of luck involved here, or maybe just a little bit of play style instead of individual matchups. So absolutely, I think this Auburn defense really, really good at stopping the run, incredible at stopping the run, spotty in pass defense at times, but still, I do have to give them respect here. But again, I think that Kentucky can find those explosives to make this a more competitive game. And maybe the stat line doesn't look pretty, but I think that's where you find.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a pretty game, right? No. Let's flip it. Let's talk about the other quarterback in this. Ashton Daniels we are assuming Ashton will be the starter,
right?
If not, I'm really fascinated to see how the Auburn fan base at home reacts to that. But for the sake of this conversation, let's assume it's Ashton. Obviously, first start as an Auburn Tiger. He started 21 games at Stanford, I believe it was. So, like, he's battle tested for sure. Dual threat. He's athletic. Seemed to be a little bit more calm, a little bit more, doing the proper procedure post snap than Jackson. But, like, let's be honest, while he might have looked better optically, Auburn didn't score an offensive touchdown after the first quarter against arguably the worst defense in P4 against Arkansas last week. So some of it, I think, was execution. Some of it, I think, was play calling, and the red zone was really, really bad. And so I'm curious to see if it's something similar to what happened last year when Auburn played Kentucky and Lexington, where the coaching staff was like, screw it, let's just give it to Jarquez Hunter, except now it'll be Jeremiah Cobb or Darrell Robinson. I'm expecting a heavier run game on Saturday. That could look similar to the last time Auburn and Kentucky played.
So this is what I said on yesterday's show. I'll reiterate it here. The Auburn and Tennessee could have, at this point in the season, statistically have very similar offenses, just in terms of raw production, not in terms of like the eye test and how they perform. Unfortunately, I think what sets those two programs apart right now is that one of them has the schematics and the coaching to get those guys open and to make those explosive plays and to torch Kentucky for 56 points last week, quite frankly. And the other one's in dead last in the SEC in passing yards per game, despite having spent millions of dollars on their receivers. Right. They can go off at any point. I think guys like Coleman and Singleton, you have to respect them. I think that Auburn has the ability, even with somebody like Daniels, to where if you just put the ball in their vicinity, they can go and make a play. But they have not done that all season long. And so my question here is, as one of the more one-dimensional teams, if not the most one-dimensional team in this league, because of their limitations, despite having the personnel, does that kind of key Kentucky in with a respectable run defense period? Does that kind of key them in, sell out and stop the run, and make this backup quarterback in his first start?
That's what I would
make those throws.
That's what I do, regardless of who's at quarterback. I'm making Auburn beat you with whoever's at quarterback's arm. 100%. Now, something I talked about, because Auburn was looking okay in the passing game and the running game going into the SEC play, and I'm like, well, they're begging them to throw. They were so concerned about the passing game.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's going to change in conference play, and boy, did it. Sadly, boy, did it. And so, yeah, if I'm Kentucky, I am loading the box up and I'm saying, all right, get it out, make the right read. Let's see what happens. So let's take a stab at who wins this game. That's next, right here on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Kentucky. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Lance, Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You've mentioned this to me before, but you want a car where you can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, and Mazda can do that.
It's all the way down, Zach, to the metallic accents, to the available Napa leather upholstery. And if you get a Mazda, you can make everyday drives feel like basically anything but. They've got smooth handling, intuitive controls, all-wheel drive for every crossover SUV. It's a dream. It absolutely is.
What would you say if I said, impossible is impossible? There's nothing you can do about it. What would you say about that?
Well, I would say, like our players, we sweat every detail over at Mazda. When you make every move count, like you mentioned, impossible does become irrelevant.
Oh, okay. All right, Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you so much for making Locked on Auburn, Locked on Kentucky your first listen every single day. For your second listen, go check out the other show. We all would really, really appreciate that. I've got Auburn winning this game. I originally said 24-13, and then I was thinking that gives Auburn's red zone offense too much confidence. So I'm going to go 23-13 Auburn Tigers, which is kind of hovering around that 10.5 point line that FanDuel has set. But the over-under, I think, is in the 40s. So I'm taking the under on this.
Real quick question: why is this a night game? Why did they feel the need to make this 4-4 Auburn versus 2-5 Kentucky a night game in Jordan-Hare Stadium? Why was that the call? Who's going to be watching this?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, our fan bases are, and I'll tell you what. Some Tulane fans are probably going to be watching this game as well. I think that this is going to be a tight one. Obviously, like I said, I don't think this game is going to be pretty. Do either of these teams get over 20 points? I don't think so. I think 2017 right now is where I'm going. Kentucky winning, hitting that 20-point mark, but I don't think either team gets over it. It's all about both these teams being in weird spots. Auburn playing with a new quarterback. Both these teams kind of playing desperate, I think, for different reasons. Self-inflicted wounds could be huge here. Kentucky, sure. Negative turnover margin. Auburn, one of the positive best turnover margins in the country. Auburn, one of the least disciplined teams in the nation as well. Desperation and how that creeps in mentally could play a huge factor in this game, especially seeing how the mental aspect of the game has really challenged Auburn at different points this season. I think a lot of Auburn fans would agree with that, just as far as the fortitude. Again, I'm not saying Kentucky's anything special there. I'm just pointing it out.
You just wanted to say fortitude.
I didn't even know it was going to come out of my mouth until it popped. It just slipped out. I feel pretty good.
Every now and then, just a little fortitude slips out.
Yes, it does.
We just saw it happen.
We just saw it happen live. Yeah, I think that this is going to be an ugly game, though. Give me the Wildcats to win 2017. Get out of Jordan-Hare with a victory, and somebody's getting fired on Sunday. I guess I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like if the decision happens on Sunday or if they'll wait till the end of the year, or Auburn has a bye week after they play Vandy next week.
Yeah.
So, but it's like if you're waiting and he beats Vandy, I don't think you can fire him after beating a top 10 team on the road. So I don't really know what you do with that.
I have a question because this is something I've been wondering about. I wanted to get an Auburn person's opinion on this. If the Tigers win out, what does Auburn do? If they beat Kentucky this weekend, they go on the road, they beat Vandy, and they win out.
You go 8-4, and that's what everybody expected you to do.
And you just keep them and you roll, right?
Yeah, and you've got the fortitude. It slipped out.
Oh,
fortitude slipped out again.
Oh my goodness, we just saw it twice.
No, I mean, I think if he wins out, I mean, I picked Auburn to go 8-4 this year. Now, I thought those 4 losses would look different than they do, but if you beat a top 10 Vandy team on the road and then you beat Alabama, who will be probably top 5 at home, like, that's what you want. Like, if you're looking for a new coach that can do that. And it's like, oh, well, if he can do it, then I think you have to ask some questions like systematically of, okay, why is the offense bad? Like, is there pressure put on him to go and get an offensive coordinator or something? I wouldn't hate that at all, but that's my guess. I think that's a pretty slim chance though of Auburn winning out.
Yeah, and I mean, the last thing you want to do after Kentucky inevitably fires Stoops is try and get into a pissing match with what is objectively a better program, right? And the Wildcats.
I mean, it sounds like Kentucky's got just unlimited money.
It's so much money.
Their head football coach.
Money that you and I have seen on the occasional day, but we will never see consistently in our lives. But yeah. Hey, $22 million on a basketball roster is nothing to scoff at. I just wish they would kind of, divvy that up a little bit more evenly, I guess.
That's the thing, though, is they won't, because Kentucky football's secondary there. It's the only place in the SEC that's like that. But it's an easier job. I will give you that.
It's a beautiful thing.
All right, you said 2017. I'm saying 23-13.
Yeah, and I don't like it.
I have no clue what to expect with this game, because I think both of these offenses have the ability to click. It's just, are they going to?
You know what this reminds me of? Last time that you and I did a crossover last year about this game, I had pneumonia while we were recording. The feeling of this game is reminding me how I physically felt in this chair talking about that game last year. This is a nasty.
You're comparing this game to having pneumonia.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna suck.
Got it. All right. How can people check out everything you've got going on?
Well, if you want to come have a good time over here at Locked On Kentucky, follow the show over on YouTube, on podcast, at Locked On UK on Twitter. We'll be tweeting there a lot as basketball season gets underway. Already beaten the preseason #1 team in America. That was fun. But yeah, if you like SEC hoops, I talk a great deal about the conference as a whole. So if you want to hear about Auburn, about Kentucky, about Arkansas, about Florida, this is the place for you.
And for Kentucky folks, check out Locked On Auburn. Wherever you get Locked On Kentucky, Locked On Auburn is there as well. We'll see you next time. This has been a crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Kentucky.